During my last video, I talked about the fact that we are experiencing in America many natural calamities at this time. Hurricane Harvey hit last week and flooded Houston and the surrounding cities horribly, and we saw the anguish and all the suffering of the people, the flooding. Now we're told this weekend that Hurricane Irma is going to go right over the top of Florida, and the devastation that it could cause. They're already saying it's a stronger hurricane than Hurricane Harvey. But not only the flooding, not only the devastation of the hurricanes, but on the West Coast there's forest fires happening in California, Wyoming, Oregon, and other states that are devastating those areas. And oftentimes people ask, where is God? Or they ask, is this God's judgment on America? My last video, I talked about the fact that God in the Bible is clearly seen as possessing the earth, and he is clearly seen as allowing his judgments at different times to come through natural calamities. We saw in the time of Noah that there was the flood. And I believe there was an actual flood that happened at that time, just as God said. 8 people were saved through the flood. Not only that, in the book of Joel, it talks about an earthquake that happened that was a judgment of God. It talks in the book of Ezekiel, 38th chapter, verse 19, that in the end times there will be a great earthquake that stops the armies that are coming against Israel. And so earthquakes are seen as God's judgment. In the book of Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, verse 23, drought is seen as part of God's judgment. And so that begs the question, are the events of the hurricanes and the forest fires and tornadoes which we've seen and flooding which we've seen God's judgment on America? Well, it isn't that easy. We have to understand that the Bible is truth. It contains all of God's truth. And as we read it and read the whole thing, the totality, and put it together through correlation, we can see what God does with weather. So let me take you to Genesis, because we need to see what has happened in the spiritual realm, what is going on today. In Genesis, the first chapter, verse 27, it says this: So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him, male and female, he created them. Verse 28, Then God blessed them, and God said to them, Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion. That's important. Have dominion. Authority on the earth was given to man, Adam and Eve. And yet in the garden they were tempted by Satan through the serpent, and they gave over that authority to him. They yielded to him, and he took that authority from them. Now let me give you an example of what might have happened here. If my son, after he graduated from college, out of the goodness of my heart, I bought him a brand new Ferrari. Straight off the showroom floor, brand new Ferrari. He didn't have to pay a cent. I gave it to him, deeded it over to him. And he then, of his choice, decided to deed it over to somebody, a friend of his. And I'm saying, no, this is my present to you. This is my gift to you. Still, since he possessed the deed, I could not take it back at that time. In the same way, Adam and Eve gave over the authority of the earth to Satan. Now, somebody might say, that's sacrilege. I have heard the song, he's got the whole world in his hands. Well, God does possess the earth. But the deed to the earth was under Satan's control. I could speak a lot longer here, but I'm trying to get to the topic at hand. Jesus came back as a man and took back the deed. Still, Satan has room upon the earth today. 2 Corinthians 4:4 says this, "And even if the gospel is blinded, it is blinded because the God of this world, small g, has blinded the minds of the people to the glorious light of the gospel." Even Jesus, when he was walking on this earth in his ministry, said this, "Now judgment is upon the world. Now the ruler of this world will be cast out." Jesus took back authority from him on the cross. But Jesus did acknowledge that Satan had that authority over the earth. Now, pushing this back to the weather, if Satan has authority on the earth, and he still does have some authority on the earth until Jesus Christ comes in the second coming and totally takes back all authority on the earth, Satan has a control over the weather. Ephesians, the 2nd chapter, verse 2, calls him the prince of the power of the air. The Bible says there's 3 types of heaven that are mentioned in the Bible. The actual, literal place where God resides on the throne is called heaven. The cosmic heavens would be the stars, the moon, the sun. And then the atmospheric heaven over the earth is also called heaven. The Bible says that Satan resides and controls the heavenlies. Well, it's talking about the atmospheric control that he has on the earth. And so when it comes to the weather, although God has Satan on a leash, though God is not going to allow Satan to devastate mankind and destroy mankind forever, Satan does have some room on the earth. Now, how does he have room to control the weather? Well, join me in 2 days, and I'll talk further about how the weather that is happening on the earth right now and the weather that happens through the last 50 years, 100 years, all of that has been, to a large extent, within Satan's domain to move. So join me in 2 days, and I'll share with you that aspect of the Bible. If you enjoy these teachings, subscribe to my channel, and you'll get them all the time. Lord bless and keep you.